My son was being buried when she posted photos of herself partying in Vegas. I'm Eddie Johnson, and 6 days ago I lost my only child. What my daughter-in-law Stephanie didn't know was that her broke trailer trash father-in-law was about to teach her the most expensive lesson of her life. She thought she knew who she was dealing with. She was wrong about everything. While 300 people gathered to honor my boy Danny, she was sipping cocktails at the Bellagio, posting Instagram stories with captions like "Free at last" and "Time to live my life." The timestamp showed 3:47 p.m., right when we were lowering my son into the ground. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I just sat there in my $89 Walmart shirt, watching everyone pay their respects while she celebrated 2,000 miles away. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This is what happened when someone finally pushed a quiet man too far. For 3 years, Stephanie made sure I knew exactly what she thought of me. Trailer trash. That's what she called me behind my back. Sometimes to my face. I live in Riverside Mobile Home Park, space number 34. $850 a month lot rent. My 2003 Ford pickup has 240,000 miles and a dented tailgate. I shop at Walmart. I eat breakfast at Denny's. Grand Slam special, $8.99. To Stephanie, I was everything wrong with Danny's life. "Your dad's such a burden," she'd tell him when she thought I couldn't hear. "Living in that dump, driving that piece of junk. It's embarrassing," Danny would defend me. "He raised me right, Steph. He worked 3 jobs to put me through trade school." Yeah, well, look where it got him. Broken alone. She had it all figured out. Her Instagram showed 34,000 followers watching her lifestyle content. Designer handbags. That leased BMW X3 with 524 monthly payments. She was the success story. I was the failure. When Danny got sick, she made her position clear. "We can't afford these medical bills, Eddie. Danny's insurance doesn't cover everything. Maybe you could help out for once?" Help out for once. I'd been paying Danny's cell phone bill for 2 years, his car insurance. I slipped him cash whenever Stephanie spent too much on her brand partnerships. But she never knew that. "I'm on fixed income, Stephanie. Social Security doesn't go far." She rolled her eyes. "Of course it doesn't. Well, don't expect us to take care of you when you can't take care of yourself." The worst part was Danny caught in the middle. "Dad, she doesn't mean it," he'd say privately. "She's just stressed about money." But I knew better. I started documenting everything. Every insult, every dismissal, every time she made Danny choose between supporting his father and keeping peace with his wife. I kept a notebook in my kitchen drawer, dates, times, exact words. March 15th. "Your dad needs to find somewhere else for Thanksgiving. My parents think he's beneath us." April 2nd. "Don't give him any more money. He made his choices." May 23rd. "Maybe he should sell that trailer and move into senior housing. At least then he'd be around his own kind. My own kind." When Danny had his accident at the construction site, Stephanie's first question wasn't about his condition. "How much is this going to cost us?" Not us. Them. I wasn't family when there were bills to pay. During those 6 days in the hospital, I never left Danny's bedside. Stephanie came twice, both times to complain about the parking fees. $12 an hour, Eddie. This is ridiculous. Can't you watch him while I handle the important stuff?" The important stuff. Planning her Vegas trip with her trainer from the gym. "It's already booked," she told Danny on day 4. "The girls' trip. I can't cancel now." "You understand, right, baby?" Danny was too weak to argue, too medicated to see what I saw. She'd been planning her escape before he was even gone. The last thing Danny said to me was, "Take care of her, Dad. Promise me." I promised, but I never promised how. After Danny passed on Monday morning, I made the funeral arrangements. $28,000. Full service. Military honor guard for his National Guard service. I paid cash. "How can you afford this?" Stephanie asked, suspicion creeping into her voice for the first time. "Danny deserves the best," I said simply. "I'll figure it out." She didn't offer to help, didn't ask questions, just assumed I'd go into debt for my son's funeral while she counted the life insurance money. $500,000. That's what Danny was worth to her. Dead, he was finally valuable. The morning after Danny died, Stephanie brought her lawyer. "This is Michael Rodriguez," she announced, walking into my trailer like she owned it. "He's going to help expedite the estate settlement." Rodriguez wore a $1,500 suit and carried a leather briefcase that cost more than my monthly expenses. He looked around my 8x40 mobile home like he'd stepped in something unpleasant. "Mr. Johnson," he said, not offering to shake hands. My client is concerned about liquidity issues. The deceased had significant debt obligations. Stephanie pulled out her phone, scrolling through Danny's financial apps. Car payments, credit cards, that medical bill from his first hospital stay 2 years ago. It's all adding up. $89,000. That was Danny's total debt load. Here's what's going to happen, Rodriguez continued. Mrs. Williams needs immediate access to all assets, life insurance proceeds, bank accounts, personal property. The sooner we liquidate everything, the better for everyone involved. Everyone, meaning Stephanie. Danny's truck alone is worth $34,000, she said. Those snap-on tools in the garage, $18,000 retail. We need to move fast before creditors start circling. I sat at my kitchen table, hands folded. What about burial expenses? You chose the expensive funeral, Stephanie shot back. That's on you. We told you to keep it simple. We, like she'd been part of the conversation. Rodriguez slid a stack of papers across my scratched Formica table. These transfer documents will expedite probate. Just sign here, here, and here. I didn't touch the papers. I'll need to review these. There's nothing to review, Stephanie snapped. Danny didn't own anything worth keeping. This trailer? I looked it up. 15,000, maybe 20. Not worth fighting over. She had no idea I owned the entire mobile home park. The important thing, Rodriguez added, is speed. Every day we delay costs money. Legal fees. Storage costs for personal property. Mrs. Williams can't afford extended proceedings. That was rich. Stephanie couldn't afford anything. Her BMW lease was 2 months behind. Her credit cards were maxed. She'd been living off Danny's electrician wages and whatever Instagram sponsorships she could scrape together, but she was about to be a wealthy widow. Or so she thought. I found this in Danny's dresser, she said, pulling out a manila envelope. Looks like military papers. Discharge documents. Whatever's in here, it's probably worth something. She didn't know Danny had a will. Didn't know I'd helped him set up everything properly through an attorney 3 years ago, right after he married her. Mrs. Williams, I said quietly, when exactly are you planning to leave for Vegas? Her face flushed. That's none of your business. The funeral is Thursday at 2 p.m. I can't cancel my trip. It's been planned for months. The girls are counting on me. Rodriguez cleared his throat. My client's travel plans don't affect the legal proceedings. We can handle estate matters regardless of her location. I looked at Stephanie directly. Your husband is being buried Thursday afternoon. Danny would want me to live my life, she said, chin raised. He wouldn't want me sitting around crying. That's not who I am. That's not who she was, a woman who mourned her husband. If you leave town before the funeral, I said slowly, people will notice. People can think whatever they want. I'm not performing grief for anyone. Rodriguez packed his papers. We'll need those signatures by Wednesday morning. After that, any delays will be interpreted as obstruction. After they left, I sat in my trailer for a long time. 47 years I'd lived here. 47 years people assumed this was all I had. I pulled out my phone and made the first call. Margaret, it's Eddie Johnson. I need to move up our timeline. Margaret Davis had been my attorney for 15 years. She knew everything. The will reading? She asked. Thursday evening, right after the funeral. Make sure everyone's there. Everyone meaning? Stephanie, her lawyer, my brother-in-law Tom, and the property manager Sarah. Make it official. Eddie, are you sure about this? Once she knows... She made her choice, Margaret. She chose Vegas over my boy's funeral. My second call was to Tom Wilson, my brother-in-law, and the only person who knew my real situation. Tom, I need you at the funeral Thursday, as a witness. Witness to what? To Stephanie not being there. My third call was to Sarah Brown, my property manager. Sarah, I need documentation. Every rent check, every property deed, every bank statement, Thursday evening. Boss, you sure you want to do this publicly? Publicly is the only way it matters. By Tuesday morning, Stephanie was already posting Vegas countdown photos. Her packed Louis Vuitton suitcase, boarding passes to McCarran Airport, hashtags like #VegasBaby and #NewChapter. Danny wasn't even cold yet. Wednesday morning, Stephanie showed up at my trailer demanding keys. She didn't knock, just used Danny's spare key and walked in like she owned the place. We need to talk, she announced, phone recording everything. Michael says you're stalling on the signatures. I was drinking coffee at my kitchen table, same spot I'd sat for 47 years. Good morning, Stephanie. Don't good morning me. Where are Danny's truck keys? In my pocket. Hand them over. Now. I stayed seated. The truck's not part of any estate settlement until probate. Bullshit. She held up her phone. I'm recording this, Eddie. You're preventing me from accessing my husband's property. I'm preventing you from selling assets before your husband is buried. Her face went red. You think you can control me? You, living in this dump, driving that piece of shit Ford? I sipped my coffee, folded my hands. Danny would be ashamed of you, she continued. Ashamed of where he came from. Ashamed of this whole white trash existence. White trash, that was new. He told me stories, she said, pacing my narrow living room. How embarrassed he was bringing friends here. How he promised himself he'd never end up like his father. What else did he tell you? That you never amounted to anything. 3 jobs and still ended up in a trailer park. Still shopping at Walmart. Still eating at fucking Denny's. She was working herself up. Phone still recording. You know what the saddest part is? You think you have some kind of authority here. You think you matter. I finished my coffee. Set the cup down gently. I matter enough that you're here begging for keys. I'm not begging. I'm demanding what's legally mine. Show me the death certificate. What? Show me Danny's death certificate. Show me probate documents. Show me anything legal that gives you authority over his property. She stared at me, phone wavering. I'm his wife. You're his widow. That's different. You can't keep me from what's mine. I'm not keeping you from anything. I'm keeping Danny's property secure until proper legal procedures are followed. She stepped closer, phone right in my face. You listen to me, you pathetic old man. I've put up with your shit for 3 years, your poverty, your constant need for help, your embarrassing presence at every family function. I stood up slowly, all 6'2" of me. You done? I'm just getting started. You want to play games? Fine. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of father you really were, how you failed Danny, how you couldn't even afford to help with his medical bills. That was interesting. She was admitting I hadn't helped financially. What medical bills? The hospital stay 2 years ago. $15,000. Where were you then? I reached into my kitchen drawer, pulled out a receipt. You mean this $15,000 bill that was paid in full on March 3rd, 2022? Her face went white. Or maybe you mean the $60,000 surgery bill from last year? Also paid in full. I pulled out another receipt. What about the prescription costs? $3,200 for that cancer medication insurance wouldn't cover? Another receipt. Stephanie's phone was shaking now. Those, Danny said what? He said you couldn't help, that you were broke. I told Danny I was on fixed income. I never said I couldn't help. But the trailer, the clothes, the truck, what about them? She looked around my mobile home like she was seeing it for the first time. I don't understand. You never asked to understand, you just assumed. But if you had money, why live like this? Like what? Like poor people. Poor people. There it was. Stephanie, what do you think poor people look like? I didn't mean... Yes, you did. You meant exactly that. I sat back down, gestured to the chair across from me. Sit. I'll stand. Suit yourself. Let me ask you something. What do you know about my work history? You were a mechanic. For how long? I don't know. Forever? 43 years. Started when I was 18. Worked 3 jobs when Danny was little. Auto shop during the day, tow truck nights, weekends at the junkyard. She was still recording, but her hand was shaking. What do you think I did with the money? Spent it. Lived paycheck to paycheck. That's what people like you do. People like me. What if I told you I saved every extra dollar? Invested it. Bought rental properties when they were cheap. I'd say you're lying. I reached for my wallet. Pulled out a business card. Sarah Brown, property manager, Johnson Real Estate Holdings. Stephanie took the card. Read it twice. This doesn't mean anything. Anyone can print cards. Call her. What? Call Sarah. Ask her how many properties Johnson Real Estate Holdings owns. Stephanie stared at the card. You're bluffing. Am I? Yes. Because if you had money, you wouldn't live here. You wouldn't dress like that. You wouldn't let people think... Think what? Think you're nobody. Nobody. Stephanie, what time is your flight tomorrow? 2:30. Why? Just curious. Vegas should be fun. Don't try to guilt-trip me about Vegas. Danny would want me to move on. I'm sure he would. She stood there for another minute, turning the business card over in her hands. I want those keys, Eddie. I know you do. This isn't over. No, it's not. After she left, I called Margaret again. She'll be gone during the funeral. Make sure everyone knows that. Eddie, what you're planning. What I'm planning is justice. Thursday morning, people started arriving early for Danny's funeral. I was surprised by how many came. 312 by Sarah's count. Danny had touched more lives than I realized. But what surprised me more was who came. "Eddie," said a voice behind me as I stood by the casket. "I'm so sorry for your loss." I turned around to see Dr. Patricia Wilson, Chief of Staff at Riverside General Hospital. She was wearing a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Dr. Wilson, thank you for coming." Danny was special. The way he volunteered with our pediatric patients, building those toy organizers for the playroom, free of charge. He said it was what his father would do. That was news to me. Danny had never mentioned hospital volunteering. "I hope you know," she continued, "the hospital board voted to cover all his final medical expenses. It's the least we can do." "That's very generous, but unnecessary." "It's already done." Danny's account shows 0 balance. Before I could respond, another familiar face approached. "Mr. Johnson?" I recognized him immediately. City Councilman Robert Taylor. I'd been his landlord for 8 years. "Councilman Taylor, didn't expect to see you here." "Are you kidding?" Danny remodeled my entire office building. Best electrician I ever worked with. When I heard what happened, he looked around at the crowd, the flowers, the expensive casket arrangements. "This is beautiful, Eddie, really beautiful. Danny would be proud." Before he walked away, he leaned closer. "By the way, when you get through this, give me a call. I want to discuss that downtown development project. Your properties are exactly what we need." "My properties." He said it quietly, but not quiet enough. A woman behind me, one of Danny's coworkers, whispered to her husband, "Did he just say properties? Plural?" Must have meant the trailer. That didn't sound like trailer talk. More people kept arriving. I recognized at least 12 of my tenants. They all looked confused to see me in this context, as the grieving father instead of the property owner who collected their rent checks. Maria Santos, who'd been renting one of my duplexes for 6 years, brought her entire family. "Mr. Eddie," she said in accented English, "Danny, he fixed my electricity 3 times, never charged me. Say his papa teach him to help neighbors." Her husband nodded vigorously. "Good boy. Good papa who raised good boy." They didn't know they were talking to their landlord. To them, I was just Eddie the mechanic, Danny's father, who lived in the trailer park. Sarah Brown arrived at 11:30, exactly when I'd asked her to. "Boss," she said quietly, "everything's ready for tonight." "Boss?" asked Tom Wilson, my brother-in-law, who'd been standing next to me. "Sarah, why'd you call him boss?" Sarah's eyes went wide. She looked at me, uncertain. "It's fine," I told her. "Tom knows." "Knows what?" asked Danny's coworker's wife, who was still eavesdropping. Tom just smiled and walked away. At noon, Margaret Davis arrived. Margaret didn't do funerals unless they were for very important clients. Her hourly rate was $850, and she didn't work cheap cases. "Eddie," she said, loud enough for several people to hear, "the conference room is reserved for 7 p.m. All parties have been notified." "What conference room?" asked another voice in the crowd. "Law offices downtown," Margaret replied. "Estate matters." "Must be insurance stuff," someone whispered. "Poor Eddie probably needs help with the paperwork. If they only knew." At 12:30, Stephanie called. "I'm at McCarran Airport," she announced. "Flight's on time. Have fun in Vegas. Don't be passive-aggressive. Danny would want me to heal. I'm sure he would. I'll be back Monday. We can deal with the estate stuff then. Actually, estate reading is tonight at 7 p.m. Silence. "I can't be there tonight. I'm in Vegas." "I know. Can't you postpone it?" "Margaret's already sent notices. Everyone's expecting you." "Well, they'll have to expect disappointment." After she hung up, I looked around at the crowd of mourners. Friends, co-workers, neighbors, my tenants, city officials, medical professionals, all here to honor Danny. All witnesses to Stephanie's absence. All about to learn something very interesting about the broke old man in the trailer park. The funeral service began at 2 p.m. sharp. I sat in the front row, alone. The seat next to me, where Stephanie should have been, remained empty for everyone to see. Reverend Matthews addressed the elephant in the room during his opening remarks. "We gather today to celebrate the life of Daniel James Johnson. While we notice some are not able to be with us today, we focus on those who are here to honor Danny's memory. Some are not able to be with us today. Diplomatic, but clear." I felt 300 pairs of eyes glancing at that empty seat. At 2:15, my phone buzzed. A text from Tom. "Check Instagram." I didn't want to, but I needed to know. Stephanie had posted a story 30 minutes earlier. Pool deck at the Bellagio, bright blue water, palm trees, and her in a red bikini holding what looked like a $15 cocktail. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to choose your own healing. #Vegas vibes, #new chapter, #living my best life." She'd posted it at 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes before her husband's funeral began. Tom leaned over. Everyone's checking their phones now. He was right. Word was spreading through the crowd like wildfire. People were showing each other their screens, whispering, shaking their heads. At 2:45, she posted again. This time it was a boomerang video of her clinking glasses with 3 other women at a pool bar. The timestamp showed 2:43 p.m. Pacific time, right while we were listening to eulogies about her husband. The caption, "Free at last, time to live my life. #Vegas girls, #celebration. Celebration. She was celebrating while we buried Danny. I heard gasps throughout the congregation. Someone behind me whispered, "Is she serious right now?" But she wasn't done. At 3:20 during the final prayer, she posted a selfie from what looked like a casino floor. Slot machines in the background, drink in hand, big smile. "Vegas, baby. Finally doing what makes me happy. No more living for other people. #blessed, #freedom, #Vegas, baby." The whispers turned to murmurs. The murmurs turned to angry voices. She's posting party pictures during the funeral? Her husband is being buried right now. What kind of person does that? Poor Eddie. Having to deal with this. At 3:47 p.m., exactly as we were lowering Danny's casket into the ground, she posted the one that broke everything. A group shot of 4 women laughing at a blackjack table. Stephanie in the center, arms raised in victory, chips scattered in front of her. The caption read, "Jackpot," in more ways than one. Sometimes the universe removes obstacles so you can finally win. #Vegas luck #new life obstacles removed. Obstacles removed. She called her dead husband an obstacle. The entire cemetery went silent except for the sound of 300 people checking their phones simultaneously. Then the outrage began. Did she just call Danny an obstacle? She's posting gambling photos at his funeral? This is disgusting. Someone needs to screenshot this before she deletes it. Too late for that. Half the crowd was already screenshotting everything. Maria Santos, my tenant, was crying. She no good woman. Danny deserved better. Doctor. Wilson shook her head. I've never seen anything like this in 30 years of practice. City Councilman Taylor looked physically ill. Eddie, I'm so sorry. This is just... it's inhuman. But the posts kept coming. 4 p.m. Stephanie at a roulette table with the caption, "Betting on myself for once. No more dead weight holding me back. #winner." Dead weight. Her husband was dead weight. 4:15 p.m. A video of her and her friends dancing on the casino floor. Dancing on the grave of my old life. Everything's coming up, Stephanie. #new beginnings, #money. Dancing on the grave. The crowd at the cemetery was no longer just mourning Danny. They were witnessing something else entirely. A real-time demonstration of who Stephanie Williams really was. She's destroying herself, Margaret whispered to me. Every post is evidence. Evidence of what? Unfitness, moral turpitude, exactly what we need for the will challenge. Tom stood next to me as the service concluded. Eddie, everyone here just witnessed this. 300 people saw what she did. I know. They're all talking about it. This whole town is going to know by tonight. I know. As people started leaving, they kept approaching me. Eddie, if you need anything. Eddie, we're here for you. Eddie, that woman doesn't deserve Danny's memory. But what struck me most was what they were saying to each other. How does someone like Eddie end up with a daughter-in-law like that? He raised such a good son. Danny was nothing like her. I hope she doesn't get everything. Eddie deserves better. There has to be something legally. They were already thinking about justice, about fairness, about whether the system would protect a good man from a bad woman. At 4:30 p.m., as the last mourners were leaving, Stephanie posted her final Vegas story of the day, a picture of her at an expensive restaurant, champagne glass raised toward the camera. Toast to new beginnings, finally free to be the woman I was meant to be. Danny would want me to be happy. Cheers to my future. #expensive celebrating money talks, #widow Swedes. Widow's weeds. She was making jokes about being a widow. 300 people just watched this happen, Tom said as we walked to our cars. 300 witnesses to her disrespecting Danny's funeral. Good thing we're all meeting tonight, I replied. Eddie, when they find out about the money, they'll understand why she married him and why she couldn't wait for him to die. That evening, as I prepared for the will reading, my phone kept buzzing with messages from people who'd been at the funeral. Reverend Matthews: Eddie, I'm praying for you. What happened today was unconscionable. Dr. Wilson: if there's anything the hospital can do to help with legal matters. City Councilman Taylor: Eddie, call me. This kind of behavior can't go unpunished. Danny's co-workers, we're behind you 100%. My tenants: Mr. Eddie, we saw what she did. Not right. 300 people had witnessed Stephanie Williams celebrating her husband's death. 300 people were about to witness something else entirely. At 6:30 p.m., I put on my only suit, a navy blue Walmart special I'd bought for Danny's high school graduation 12 years earlier. Time to teach Vegas girl about the price of disrespect. The law offices of Davis, Henderson, and Associates occupied the top floor of Riverside's tallest building. Margaret's conference room had windows facing the entire valley. 24 chairs around a mahogany table that probably cost more than most people's cars. At 7 p.m. sharp, everyone was there except Stephanie. Tom Wilson sat to my right, still in his funeral suit. Sarah Brown was across from him with a banker's box full of documents. Margaret Davis took her position at the head of the table, flanked by 2 associate attorneys. But what surprised me was everyone else who showed up. Dr. Patricia Wilson entered first. I hope you don't mind, Eddie. When I heard there was an estate matter involving Danny. City Councilman Robert Taylor came next. Margaret called me, said I might want to witness this. Then Danny's supervisor from the electrical contractor company, 3 of his co-workers, Maria Santos from the duplex on Cedar Street, even Reverend Matthews showed up. This many people for a trailer park mechanic's will reading? One of Margaret's associates whispered. Margaret smiled. Just wait. At 7:15, her phone rang. Yes, I'll accept the charges. Margaret put it on speaker. Mrs. Williams, you're calling from Las Vegas? I'm at the Bellagio. Stephanie's voice echoed through the conference room, slightly slurred. This will reading is ridiculous. Can't we just do this over the phone? Mrs. Williams, are you intoxicated? I'm celebrating. I won $3,000 at blackjack tonight. Danny would be so proud. Murmurs around the room, people exchanging glances. Mrs. Williams, we're proceeding with the estate reading as scheduled. Fine, whatever. Just tell me about the life insurance. $500,000, right? When do I get the check? Margaret looked at me. I nodded. Mrs. Williams, before we discuss any distributions, I need to read Daniel Johnson's last will and testament in its entirety. Skip the boring parts. How much money am I getting? I'm required by law to read the complete document. Stephanie sighed dramatically into the phone. Fine, but make it fast. The girls want to hit another casino. Margaret opened the thick legal folder. Last will and testament of Daniel James Johnson, dated March 15th, 2021. Wait, Stephanie interrupted. 2021? Danny made a will in 2021? Yes. Witnessed and notarized. Shall I continue? Yes, continue. Being of sound mind and body, I hereby declare this to be my last will and testament, revoking all previous wills and codicils. Margaret's voice carried through the silent conference room. First, I leave my personal effects and tools to my father, Edward Johnson, with gratitude for the work ethic and integrity he instilled in me. His tools? Stephanie's voice cracked slightly. I thought those were part of the estate. Second, I leave my 2019 Chevrolet Silverado to my father, Edward Johnson, as partial repayment for the financial support he provided throughout my marriage. Financial support? Stephanie was confused now. What financial support? Eddie never gave us money. Margaret continued reading. Third, regarding the life insurance policy through my employer, I designate my father, Edward Johnson, as primary beneficiary with my wife, Stephanie Williams, as secondary beneficiary, contingent upon her demonstrating appropriate respect for my memory and family relationships. The phone went silent. What does that mean, appropriate respect? Specifically, Margaret read, if my wife fails to attend my funeral services or demonstrates through words or actions that she views my death as a financial opportunity rather than a personal loss, she forfeits all claims to insurance proceeds. That's not legal. It's completely legal, Mrs. Williams. The insurance company has already been notified of today's circumstances. What circumstances? Margaret nodded to Sarah, who opened her laptop. Mrs. Williams, are you familiar with Instagram user at Stephanie Williams Life? That's my account. Can you confirm you posted the following content today? Sarah began reading from the screen. Sometimes you have to choose your own healing. Posted at 1:47 p.m. during funeral preparation. Free at last. Time to live my life. Posted at 2:43 p.m. during the funeral service. Jackpot. Sometimes the universe removes obstacles so you can finally win. Posted at 3:47 p.m. during the burial. Each quote hit the room like a physical blow. People were shaking their heads, some making notes. You screenshotted my posts? Multiple people screenshotted your posts, Mrs. Williams, including several attendees at your husband's funeral. This is invasion of privacy. Margaret's voice remained steady. Mrs. Williams, these were public posts on a public platform posted during your husband's funeral, which you chose not to attend. I couldn't cancel my trip. You chose not to cancel your trip. There's a difference. Yes, there is. Margaret turned to the next page. Fourth, regarding my father, Edward Johnson, I want the record to reflect that he has been the primary financial provider for my household for the past 3 years, despite maintaining the appearance of modest means. What? Stephanie's voice was barely a whisper. Specifically, my father has paid the following expenses without my wife's knowledge: car insurance, cell phone bills, medical costs not covered by insurance, emergency home repairs, and monthly cash supplements totaling approximately $2,000 per month. The room was silent except for the sound of people breathing. I have maintained this secret at my father's request, as he preferred to help without recognition or gratitude from those who would not appreciate his sacrifices. No, Stephanie said. No, that's not. Eddie lives in a trailer. He shops at Walmart. He drives a beat-up truck. Margaret looked at me. Mr. Johnson, would you like to address this? I stood up slowly. Every eye in the room was on me. Stephanie, you assume that how I choose to live reflects what I can afford to live. What? What are you saying? I nodded to Sarah. She started pulling documents from the banker's box. Stephanie, meet Sarah Brown. She's not just my friend. She's my property manager. Property manager for what? Sarah spread the first deed across the table. Riverside Mobile Home Park. 18 units. Purchased 1987. Another deed. Cedar Street duplexes. 4 buildings. Purchased 1992. Another. Downtown Commercial Building. Purchased 1995. Another. Sunset Lake Properties. 6 houses. Purchased 2001. The documents kept coming. Total properties, 18 buildings. Total units, 87. Total current value, $18.5 million. The conference room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning. Stephanie, I said calmly, I own the trailer park I live in. I own the downtown building where Margaret's law office is located. I own the duplex where Maria Santos lives. I own half the rental properties in Riverside County. No. Her voice was shaking. No, you're lying. Sarah pulled out bank statements. Wells Fargo business account. Current balance, $3.8 million. More documents. Johnson & Sons Auto Repair. 3 locations, 47 employees. Current valuation, $4.2 million. Stop, Stephanie whispered. Combined net worth, Sarah continued, approximately $23 million. The phone was silent for so long we thought the call had dropped. Finally, Stephanie's voice came through, small and broken. 23 million? 23 million, I confirmed. But you live in a trailer. I live in a trailer because I like living in a trailer, because it's quiet, because it reminds me where I came from, because I don't need to prove anything to anyone. The Walmart clothes, the Denny's breakfasts. I shop at Walmart because their clothes are comfortable. I eat at Denny's because I like the Grand Slam special. But people think you're poor? I know what people think. Some people, not everyone. I gestured around the room. Dr. Wilson knows I've donated over $2 million to Riverside General Hospital over the past 10 years. Councilman Taylor knows I own the properties we're developing downtown. Maria knows I've never raised her rent in 6 years, even when she couldn't pay during COVID. Margaret smiled. Mrs. Williams, your husband knew all of this. He chose not to tell you because he wanted to see who you really were. I don't understand. Danny wanted to know if you loved him, or if you loved what you thought his inheritance would be. This is insane. Mrs. Williams, Margaret continued, given your public celebration of your husband's death, your failure to attend his funeral, and your statements referring to him as an obstacle and dead weight, the insurance company has approved transfer of beneficiary status to Edward Johnson. You can't do this. It's already done. I'll contest it. I'll get my own lawyer. With what money, Mrs. Williams? Because according to your credit report, which is public record in divorce proceedings, you currently owe $67,000 in credit card debt, you're 2 months behind on your car lease, and you're facing eviction from your apartment. How do you know? Because Danny asked me to investigate you 2 years ago. He suspected you were only interested in money. He wanted to be sure. He investigated me? Mrs. Williams, your husband knew exactly who you were. The question was whether you'd prove it publicly. And I did. Yes, you did. The call ended. Stephanie had hung up. Margaret looked around the room. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the estate reading for Daniel James Johnson. As people started filing out, each one stopped to shake my hand. Eddie, I had no idea. Eddie, you're a good man. Eddie, Danny was lucky to have you. The last person to leave was Tom. 47 years, he said. 47 years you kept this secret. Wasn't a secret, just wasn't anyone's business. Except now it is. Now it had to be. Friday morning, Stephanie was on the first flight back to California. She called Margaret's office at 6:47 a.m., demanding an emergency meeting. Mrs. Williams, Margaret said when she arrived, I have to ask, are you still intoxicated? Stephanie looked like she hadn't slept. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her makeup smeared, her hands shaking. I need to fix this. Fix what? The will. The insurance. There has to be a way to contest it. Margaret pulled out a thick folder. Mrs. Williams, let's discuss your legal options. Thank God, yes, what can we do? Absolutely nothing. Stephanie stared at her. What do you mean, nothing? I mean, you have zero legal recourse. Daniel's will is ironclad. The insurance beneficiary change is valid, and your social media posts from yesterday constitute public evidence of exactly the behavior Daniel predicted. Margaret spread Stephanie's Instagram screenshots across the desk. A court would find this evidence compelling, celebrating your husband's death, calling him an obstacle, posting party pictures during his funeral. No judge in California would award you anything. But I'm his wife. We're his wife, and as his widow, you're entitled to community property assets. Let me show you what those are. Margaret pulled out another document. Daniel's checking account, negative $67 due to overdraft fees. His savings account, $43.16. Personal property, tools, truck, and clothing, all of which were specifically left to his father. What about our apartment? Rental property, no ownership interest. The BMW? Leased in your name. Danny was never on the title. But we had money. He had a good job. Mrs. Williams, where do you think Danny's money went? Margaret pulled out bank statements going back 3 years. Every month, Danny earned approximately $5,800 after taxes. Your monthly expenses averaged $9,300. That's impossible. BMW lease, $524. Apartment rent, $1,800. Your credit card minimums, $1,100. Your shopping and entertainment, $2,200. Insurance, utilities, food, $600. Margaret circled the numbers. Danny's income, $5,800. Your expenses, $9,300. Deficit, $3,500 per month. How did we afford it? Edward Johnson. He was sending Danny $4,000 every month for 3 years. Stephanie's face went white. Eddie was paying our bills. Eddie was keeping you from bankruptcy. But Danny told me Eddie was broke. Danny told you what his father asked him to tell you. Eddie wanted to see how you'd treat someone you thought was beneath you. Margaret leaned forward. Mrs. Williams, you spent 3 years insulting and demeaning the man who was subsidizing your lifestyle. I didn't know. Exactly. You didn't know, so you treated him like trash. Margaret pulled out another document. But here's the really interesting part. You owe Danny's creditors $89,000 in medical debt. What? Hospital bills, specialist consultations, prescription costs. As his widow, you're legally responsible for all marital debt. But Eddie paid those bills. Eddie paid what insurance didn't cover while Danny was alive. But insurance policies often have gaps. And Eddie has no legal obligation to pay Danny's posthumous debt. Posthumous debt? Bills that arrived after Danny died. Final hospital charges, ambulance services, pharmacy bills. $89,000. Stephanie was hyperventilating. I can't pay $89,000. I know. Your net worth is negative $67,000 before adding Danny's debt. With his medical bills, you're $156,000 in debt. Can't I declare bankruptcy? You can. But that won't solve your immediate problems. Margaret pulled out an eviction notice. Your landlord received notification of Danny's death from the insurance company. Since he was the primary leaseholder and his income is no longer available, you have 30 days to qualify for a new lease or vacate. Qualify how? Prove you can afford $1,800 monthly rent. Do you have income documentation? Stephanie's Instagram sponsorships brought in maybe $800 a month, inconsistently. What about unemployment? You'd have to prove you were employed. Instagram influencing doesn't qualify for unemployment benefits. Margaret kept pulling documents. Your BMW lease company has been notified of Danny's death. Since the lease was in your name but financially guaranteed by his income, they're requiring immediate payment of outstanding balance or vehicle return. How much do I owe? $14,700. For a lease? Early termination penalty, plus 3 missed payments, plus fees. Margaret spread all the documents across the desk like a poker hand. Summary. You owe $156,000 in debt. You're losing your apartment in 30 days. You're losing your car immediately. And your monthly income is approximately $800. Stephanie stared at the papers. What about contesting the will? With what money? Will contests cost $50,000 to $100,000 minimum? You'd need to pay attorney fees up front. Can't you work on contingency? Mrs. Williams, no attorney will take a contingency case where the client posted Instagram stories calling the deceased an obstacle and celebrating his death. Those posts were just... I was emotional. You were celebrating, on camera, during his funeral, which 300 people witnessed. Margaret leaned back in her chair. Mrs. Williams, here's your reality. You publicly humiliated yourself and dishonored your husband's memory. You exposed yourself as exactly the gold digger Daniel suspected you were, and now you're facing complete financial ruin. There has to be something. There is something. What? You could apologize, publicly, to Edward Johnson. Acknowledge what you did. Take responsibility for your behavior. Would that change anything legally? No. Then why would I do that? Margaret smiled coldly. Because it might be the first decent thing you've done in 3 years. By Monday morning, Stephanie's apartment was empty. She'd fled California in her BMW, which was repossessed in Nevada 2 days later. Her Instagram account was deleted after thousands of angry comments about the funeral posts. The life insurance check for $500,000 was deposited into my account Thursday afternoon. I used it to establish the Daniel James Johnson Memorial Scholarship for trade school students. Full ride scholarships, $25,000 per year for 20 students. Danny would have liked that. The story went viral within a week. Not because I wanted it to. I never spoke to reporters, never posted anything online, never tried to get attention, but 300 people had witnessed what happened at Danny's funeral. 300 people had screenshots of Stephanie's Instagram posts. 300 people had been at the will reading that night. You can't keep that kind of story quiet. Local mechanic reveals $23 million fortune after daughter-in-law skips son's funeral for Vegas, ran in the Riverside Press Enterprise on Tuesday. By Wednesday, it was picked up by the Los Angeles Times. By Friday, CNN was calling Margaret's office. The story had everything people loved: hidden wealth, family betrayal, cosmic justice, and a villain who got exactly what she deserved. My phone rang constantly, reporters wanting interviews, TV producers wanting me for talk shows, book agents wanting to tell my story. I declined everything. Eddie, Margaret said, you could make millions just from interviews. I already have millions. But think about the platform. You could inspire people. I inspire people by living quietly and helping when I can. The attention died down after a month, but the consequences for Stephanie were just beginning. Her Instagram sponsors all dropped her within days. Athletic wear companies, supplement brands, fashion retailers, nobody wanted to be associated with the Vegas funeral girl. She tried creating new social media accounts under different names, but people recognized her. Screenshots of her funeral posts kept circulating, always with her face clearly visible. Stephanie Williams became internet shorthand for entitled behavior. Don't be a Stephanie showed up on memes and TikTok videos. She fled to her parents' house in Phoenix, but they threw her out after 2 weeks. She brought shame on our family, her mother told a local reporter. We raised her better than this. The medical debt collectors found her anyway, garnished her wages from a part-time retail job, repoed her belongings, sued her for collection costs. Meanwhile, the Danny Johnson Memorial Scholarship was changing lives. Our first recipient was Maria Santos's nephew, Jesus. 18 years old, wanted to become an electrician like Danny. Mr. Eddie, Maria told me, Jesus, he cry when he get the letter. Full scholarship to trade school. He never think possible. The second scholarship went to a young woman named Ashley, whose father had died in a construction accident. She wanted to learn HVAC repair. Danny would be proud, Tom said as we attended Ashley's graduation ceremony. These kids are getting chances they never would have had. The scholarship fund grew beyond the insurance money. Other people started donating. Local businesses, former customers of Johnson & Sons Auto Repair, people who'd been touched by Danny's kindness. By the first anniversary, we had enough money to fund 40 scholarships annually. Dr. Wilson called me every few months with updates on the hospital's pediatric wing. Eddie, that toy organization system Danny built is still helping kids every day. The nurses tell me it makes treatment so much easier when children have organized, accessible toys. Danny always was good with his hands. He got that from his father. City Councilman Taylor kept trying to get me involved in development projects. Eddie, with your property portfolio, you could reshape this entire downtown. I like downtown the way it is. But think about the opportunities. Mixed-use development, affordable housing, commercial spaces. Tom, I've been buying affordable housing for 30 years. It's called rental properties with reasonable rents. Sarah Brown kept managing my properties, but now she didn't have to keep secrets. Boss, it's easier when tenants know you're the owner, she told me. When Maria needed help with her air conditioning, I could just authorize the repair instead of pretending to check with some mysterious landlord. How are the vacancy rates? 0%. Waiting list for every property. Turns out people like landlords who actually care about maintenance and fair rent. Imagine that. Tom Wilson became something of a local celebrity as the brother-in-law who knew all along. Eddie, people keep asking me how you kept the secret so long. What do you tell them? That you're the most disciplined man I've ever known. 47 years of living below your means, helping people without credit, building wealth without showing off. And that Danny knew exactly who his father was, even if his wife didn't. The property values in Riverside kept climbing, but I never raised rents faster than inflation. Boss, Sarah asked, you know you could be making twice as much if you charged market rates? Sarah, what's the point of having money if you use it to hurt people? Most landlords don't think that way. Most landlords aren't trying to honor their son's memory. Every month, I received updates about Stephanie's situation from people who kept track of such things online. Last I heard, she was working at a discount retail store in Tucson, living with a roommate in a studio apartment, still trying to pay off Danny's medical debt. She'd started a GoFundMe asking for help with her financial situation. It raised $47. Justice, it turns out, has a perfect sense of irony. 3 years later, I sold the trailer. Not because I was ashamed of it, because I finally found something better. The house on Sunset Lake had been one of my rental properties for 8 years. When the tenants moved out, instead of finding new renters, I decided to move in myself. 2 bedrooms, lake view, peaceful neighborhood. Everything a 70-year-old widower needed. I kept the 2003 Ford pickup. Still shopped at Walmart. Still ate breakfast at Denny's every Sunday after church. But now I didn't have to explain my choices to anyone. The Danny Johnson Memorial Scholarship had grown into a full foundation, funding trade school education across 3 counties. 212 graduates so far. Electricians, plumbers, auto mechanics, HVAC technicians, all of them carrying Danny's work ethic into the world. Tom Wilson visited every Sunday. We'd sit on my dock fishing and talking about everything except the past. Eddie, you ever regret how it all went down? Which part? The public humiliation, the viral story, Stephanie losing everything. I thought about it while watching my bobber float on the lake. Tom, I didn't humiliate her. She humiliated herself. I just made sure there were consequences. And now? Now she knows the price of disrespect, and everyone else knows that quiet doesn't mean weak. I learned something, too. Humility is a virtue, but dignity has its price. Sometimes that price is silence. Sometimes it's truth. The trick is knowing which time is which.